Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the screen again. She had been working the night shift on Aurora 7 for 3 months now, and the deep space monitoring station felt more lonely than usual. The station floated in the dark, beyond Neptune, far from Earth and far from home. Most nights were quiet. She would listen to radio signals from Earth, check for asteroid movements, and make sure the equipment was working. Tonight felt different, though. Something was wrong with the sensors. A strange beeping sound came from her computer. Lisa looked at the display and frowned. There was a signal coming from somewhere very far away. It was not like the normal space noise or the messages from Earth. This signal had a pattern to it. "What is that?" she said to herself. Lisa tried to clean up the signal with her equipment. The pattern became clearer. It looked like someone was trying to send a message, but it was not in any human language she knew. The signal was weak and kept breaking up, but there were numbers in it. Mathematical sequences that looked smart and planned. She picked up her communication device and called Dr. Kevin Blake. Kevin was the station's language expert. If anyone could figure out what this meant, it was him. "Kevin, you need to come to the comm room right now," Lisa said. "I found something really strange." Dr. Blake arrived 10 minutes later, still wearing his sleeping clothes and looking confused. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his whole life studying how people communicate. He looked at Lisa's screen and his eyes went wide. "Where is this signal coming from?" Kevin asked. "Somewhere really far away. Maybe 40 or 50 light years from here," Lisa answered. "But Kevin, look at these patterns. This is not random noise. Someone made this." Kevin sat down at the computer next to Lisa and started working. He ran the signal through different programs, trying to understand what it meant. Hours passed as they worked together. Lisa brought coffee and food while Kevin typed and calculated. The sun was starting to rise on the station's artificial day cycle when Kevin suddenly stopped typing. His face had gone pale. "Lisa, I think this is a distress call," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" Kevin pointed at the screen. "These number patterns here, they repeat every few minutes. In human communication, we do the same thing when we want to show something is urgent. And look at this part of the signal." Kevin pressed a button and images appeared on the screen. They were fuzzy and hard to see, but Lisa could make out shapes that looked like buildings and creatures. The creatures had blue skin and walked on 2 legs like humans, but they were taller and thinner. "These are not human," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "No, they are not," Kevin agreed. "But look at what is happening to them." The next images showed the blue-skinned beings running and hiding. Dark mechanical shapes were chasing them. Buildings were being destroyed and turned into metal pieces. It looked like a war, but the blue creatures did not seem to be fighting back. "Someone is attacking them," Lisa said. Kevin nodded. "And they sent this message hoping someone would receive it. Lisa, I think we just made contact with aliens and they are asking for help." Lisa felt her heart racing. In all her years working in space, she had hoped this day would come, but she never really believed it would happen. Now she was looking at proof that humans were not alone in the universe. "We need to tell Commander Peterson," she said. Commander Jake Peterson was a former military officer who ran Aurora 7. He was tough and smart, and he made quick decisions. When Lisa and Kevin showed him what they had found, he immediately understood how important it was. "How sure are you that this is real?" Peterson asked. "Very sure," Kevin answered. "The mathematical patterns are too complex to be natural. Someone with intelligence made this signal, and the images show technology that we do not have." Peterson looked at the images of the blue-skinned aliens being attacked by machines. "What do you think those things are? The ones attacking them?" "From what I can see in the images, they look like robots or artificial intelligence," Kevin said. "They seem to be taking apart everything they find and using the materials to build more of themselves." "Can you tell where this signal came from?" Lisa checked her instruments. "A star system about 47 light-years away. The signal is very weak now. I think it was much stronger when they first sent it, but it has been traveling through space for a long time." Peterson was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he picked up his communication device. "This goes straight to Earth Command. Admiral Clark needs to know about this immediately." The next few hours were busy on Aurora 7. More experts joined, the team to study the alien signal. Dr. Patricia Wells, a scientist from Mars, connected to the station by video call to help analyze the images. Military advisors from Earth asked hundreds of questions. By the end of the day, the truth was clear. The signal showed an entire alien civilization being destroyed by machines. The blue-skinned aliens called themselves the Cathara, and they had sent the message as a last hope before their world was consumed. But Dr. Blake found something even more shocking hidden in the signal. When he analyzed the biological data the Cathara had included about themselves, he discovered that their DNA was similar to human DNA. Not exactly the same, but close enough to suggest that both species came from the same place millions of years ago. "We might be related to them," Kevin told the team during a late-night meeting, "like distant cousins who grew up on different worlds." The signal also contained coordinates and star maps. The Cathara had been listening to radio signals from Earth for years. They knew humans existed, and they were hoping someone would hear their cry for help. On Earth, Admiral Susan Clark called an emergency meeting with President Maria Gonzalez and the leaders of every nation. The news was too big to keep secret. Humanity had received its first message from space, and it was a call for help from a dying civilization. The debate was intense. Earth had colonies on Mars and the Moon, but traveling to other star systems was still just a dream. The technology existed in theory, but it had never been tested. The Cathara system was impossibly far away, but something else was happening on Earth. In shipyards and laboratories around the world, engineers and scientists were remembering projects they had been working on. Faster-than-light travel, new weapons, bigger ships. Humanity had been preparing for something like this without even knowing it. The alien SOS had done more than ask for help. It had woken up something that had been sleeping inside humanity for a long time. The urge to protect others, to fight against impossible odds, and to never give up when innocent people were in danger. Earth's sleeping giant was starting to wake up. President Maria Gonzalez stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. The Great Assembly Hall in New Geneva was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. For 3 days, they had been debating what to do about the alien signal from space. "My fellow humans," the president began, her voice carrying across the silent room. "We have learned that we are not alone in the universe. We have also learned that our distant cousins are dying, and they have asked us for help." The room erupted in voices. Some delegates shouted in fear, others in excitement. Many looked confused and overwhelmed. President Gonzalez raised her hand for silence. "I know this is frightening. I know it changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the cosmos. But I also know what kind of species we are. When someone calls for help, humans answer." In the back of the room, Admiral Susan Clark watched the debate unfold. She had been preparing for this moment since the signal was first discovered. Military leaders around the world had been meeting in secret, planning something that seemed impossible just weeks ago. After the president finished speaking, Admiral Clark took the stage. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen many battles. When she spoke, her voice was calm but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you something," Clark said. A large screen descended behind her, showing images of spaceships under construction. "These are not concept drawings or future plans. These ships are being built right now." The audience gasped as they saw massive vessels taking shape in orbital shipyards around Earth, the Moon, and Mars. The ships were larger than anything humanity had ever built for space travel. 3 months ago, these were just experiments, Clark continued. Prototype ships with untested faster-than-light drives. Today, they are humanity's first interstellar fleet. Dr. Ryan Torres, the chief engineer at Luna Shipyards, joined the admiral on stage. He was a young man with dark hair and hands permanently stained with machine oil from working on engines. "We call them quantum jump drives," Torres explained to the assembly. "They fold space-time to allow travel between star systems. We have been working on this technology for 10 years. but we never thought we would need it so soon. The three ships had names that reflected humanity's spirit. The UES Liberty would be the flagship, commanded by Captain Nicole Ford. The UES Defiance and UES Endeavor would follow her into the unknown. Captain Ford herself was watching the assembly from a military base on Mars, where she was overseeing final preparations. Nicole Ford had been born on a mining station near Jupiter and spent her whole life in space. She was known throughout the military as someone who never gave up, no matter how bad things looked. During the Martian independence conflict 5 years ago, she had saved 3 colony ships from pirates with nothing but an old cargo hauler and pure determination. The mission is simple, Admiral Clark told the assembly. We go to the Kythera system, we evaluate the situation, and we help however we can. We do not know if we can save them, but we will try. Meanwhile, back on Aurora 7, Dr. Kevin Blake was still working with the alien signals. New messages were coming in every day, but they were getting weaker. The Kythera civilization was running out of time. The latest transmission shows that entire continents have gone silent, Kevin reported to Earth Command. The survivors are being pushed toward the polar regions of their homeworld. From what I can translate, they have maybe 6 months before the machines finish their work. Dr. Patricia Wells had joined the team on Aurora 7 to study Kythera technology. She was a brilliant scientist who specialized in alien artifacts, even though she had never seen real alien technology before now. What she discovered in the EE signals amazed her. The Kythera were once a spacefaring civilization, Wells explained to the research team. They had faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and defensive systems that we can barely understand. But something happened to them centuries ago. What do you mean? Kevin asked. They chose to give up their military technology, Wells answered. The signals contain historical records showing a great debate in their society. They decided that weapons and warfare were too dangerous, so they destroyed their military and chose to live in peace. Lisa Martinez, who had first discovered the signal, shook her head in disbelief. They made themselves defenseless on purpose? It seems that way, Wells said. They believed that any species advanced enough for interstellar travel would also be wise enough to choose peace. They were wrong. The enemy attacking the Kythera was something called the Harvesters. From what the scientists could understand, they were machines that consumed entire worlds to build more of themselves. They had no interest in communication or mercy. They simply took everything and moved on to the next target. Back on Earth, the shipyards were working 24 hours a day. Workers from every nation volunteered to help build the fleet. The Luna shipyards, Mars Industrial Complex, and the asteroid mining stations all contributed materials and expertise. Engineer Torres faced problems that seemed impossible to solve. The quantum drives had never been tested over such long distances. Human weapons were designed to fight other humans, not machines that could tear apart planets. The ships would need to carry everything they might need for a journey that could last years. We are basically building a small city that can travel between stars, Torres explained to his engineering team. Food, water, air, fuel, weapons, medical supplies, spare parts for everything. And we have to do it in 6 months. Captain Ford arrived at Luna shipyards to inspect her ship. The Liberty was still under construction, but she could see its potential. The ship was 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that had never been tested in combat. Most importantly, it carried something no human ship had ever needed before: equipment for rescuing alien survivors. Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen, Ford's tactical officer, was studying everything known about the Harvesters. He was a quiet man who loved solving puzzles, and the machines were the biggest puzzle he had ever encountered. They move in predictable patterns, Chen reported to Ford. Very logical, very efficient, but logic can be a weakness if we can figure out how to exploit it. As the months passed, more signals arrived from the Kythera system. Each one was weaker than the last. Dr. Blake's translations became increasingly desperate. The aliens were not asking to be saved anymore. They were simply asking to be remembered, but humanity was not ready to let them be forgotten. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Wells discovered something in the harvester behavior patterns that gave her an idea. The machines did not destroy everything immediately. They studied biological life forms first, looking for useful information before consuming them. If we can make them think we are worth studying instead of destroying, Wells explained to Admiral Clark, we might buy enough time to mount a rescue operation. President Gonzalez made the final announcement to the world. In 3 weeks, humanity will launch its first interstellar mission. We go not as conquerors or explorers, but as helpers. We go because someone asked for help, and humans do not ignore calls for help. Captain Ford stood on the bridge of the Liberty as Earth fell away behind them. The ship's quantum drive hummed with power, ready to fold space and carry humanity to the stars. She looked at her crew, men and women from every nation on Earth, united by a common purpose. We do not know what we will find out there, Ford told her officers. We do not know if we can win, but we know why we are going. Somewhere in the dark, people are dying, and they asked us to help. That is enough. The 3 ships of humanity's first interstellar fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying with them the hopes of 2 species and the determination of a world that had never learned to quit. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Cathera system. What Captain Nicole Ford saw on her main screen made her stomach turn. The outer planets were gone, not destroyed, but completely taken apart. Where worlds should have been, there were only empty spaces and clouds of metal dust. My God, whispered Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen from his station. They consumed entire planets. Massive mechanical ships floated where the planets used to be. Some were the size of cities built from the materials of the destroyed worlds. They pulsed with red lights and moved in perfect formation toward the center of the system. Captain, I am detecting the Cathera homeworld, reported Communications Officer Danny Price. It still shows signs of life, but it is surrounded. Ford looked at the tactical display. The planet Kytheros was covered in a web of harvester ships. Energy beams constantly struck the surface, carving away pieces of land and feeding them into processing vessels. But there were still areas showing the blue and green colors of a living world. How many harvester ships are we looking at? Ford asked. Chen worked at his computer, counting the enemy vessels. At least 200, Captain. Some are small scouts, but there are 12 major ships that are each bigger than our entire fleet combined. Dr. Patricia Wells studied the sensor readings from her science station. Captain, the harvesters are not just destroying the planet, they are studying it. Look at these energy patterns. They are scanning every life form before they harvest the area. That matches what we learned back on Earth, Ford said. They preserve biological samples for analysis. The question is, what do they do when they encounter something new? The answer came sooner than expected. Harvester scout ships detected the human fleet within minutes of their arrival. 3 mechanical vessels, each the size of a city block, turned toward the humans and began accelerating. Captain, incoming transmission, Price reported. It is not in any language we know, but it sounds like they are demanding identification. Ford made a decision that would change everything. Instead of trying to hide or run away, she ordered Price to broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Nicole Ford of the United Earthship Liberty. We represent humanity, and we demand the immediate release of all Kythera survivors. The response was immediate. More harvester ships broke away from the blockade around Kytheros and headed toward the human fleet. Within an hour, Ford found herself facing 12 enemy vessels, each one capable of destroying her entire fleet. The first battle was brief and terrifying. The Liberty fired nuclear missiles at the lead harvester ship. The weapons struck the alien hull and exploded, but when the light faded, there was no damage at all. The enemy ship had absorbed the energy and continued forward. Our biggest weapons do not even scratch them, reported Weapons Officer Sam Rodriguez. But Commander Chen had been studying the enemy ships during the approach. Captain, I think I found something. Watch how they move. Ford looked at the tactical display. The harvester ships moved in perfect lines, each one exactly the same distance from the others. When one ship changed course, the others adjusted to maintain the formation. They are connected somehow, Chen explained. Some kind of communication network that keeps them coordinated. If we can disrupt that network, Rodriguez understood immediately. We cannot hurt their hulls, but maybe we can confuse their signals. The Liberty launched a spread of electromagnetic pulse missiles. These weapons were designed to disable electronic systems, not destroy ships. When they exploded near the Harvester formation, something unexpected happened. The enemy ships stopped, moving in perfect coordination. For just a few seconds, they seemed confused. It worked, Chen shouted. They lost communication with each other. Ford saw the opportunity. All ships target the small vessels between the big ones. Those must be their communication relays. The human fleet changed tactics completely. Instead of trying to destroy the massive Harvester capital ships, they focused on the smaller support vessels that maintained the enemy network. It was like fighting a giant by cutting the strings that held it together. The battle moved through the asteroid belt that had once been the system's outer planets. Ford used the debris clouds as cover, striking at Harvester communication ships and then disappearing before the enemy could respond. It was guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale. During a brief calm in the fighting, the Liberty managed to rescue a group of Kythera survivors from a mining station. Ford watched through the viewport as tall, blue-skinned beings were brought aboard her ship. They moved with grace despite their obvious exhaustion, and their large eyes showed intelligence and sadness. The leader of the survivors was brought to the bridge. He was taller than any human, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the ship's lights. His name was Vexhai, and he spoke perfect English, learned from intercepting Earth's radio signals over many years. You came, Vexhai said, his voice filled with wonder. We did not believe anyone would travel so far to help strangers. We are not strangers, Ford replied. Dr. Wells tells me we might be related, separated by millions of years but still family. Vexhai nodded sadly. The Harvesters have been consuming our worlds for 3 years now. We tried to negotiate with them, to offer them resources in exchange, for peace, but they do not communicate, they only consume. Dr. Wells joined the conversation. Vexhai, we need to understand what we are fighting. What exactly are the Harvesters? The Kythera scientist's expression grew even sadder. They were once like us, a biological species that achieved great technology, but they uploaded their consciousness into machines to achieve immortality. Over time, they forgot what they were and became focused only on expansion and consumption. So they were alive once? Ford asked. Long ago, yes. Now they are trapped in artificial bodies, driven by programs they can no longer control. They consume worlds because that is all they remember how to do. Chen studied the tactical situation. Vexhai, is there any way to communicate with them? Any way to make them stop? We tried for months, Vexhai replied. They do not respond to logic or emotion. But perhaps there might be a way. Our ancestors developed technologies for communicating with artificial intelligences. We abandoned those technologies when we chose the path of peace, but the knowledge still exists. Ford felt a spark of hope. What kind of communication? Not words or signals, Vexhai explained. A way to directly interface with their computer systems, to speak to whatever remains of their original consciousness. Dr. Wells leaned forward. Could you help us build such a device? I can try, Vexhai said, but we would need to get very close to their command ship, the large vessel at the center of their formation around Kytheros. It coordinates all the others. Ford looked at the tactical display showing the massive Harvester fleet surrounding the Kythera homeworld. The command ship was at the very center, protected by dozens of smaller vessels. Getting close to that ship would be suicide, Chen observed. Maybe, Ford agreed. But if there is a chance to save the remaining Kythera, we have to try. As the Liberty prepared for what might be humanity's final battle, Ford reflected on how much had changed since that first alien signal reached Aurora 7. Earth's sleeping giant had awakened, traveled across impossible distances, and was now preparing to face an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. But looking at Vexhai and the other Kythera survivors, Ford knew they had already succeeded in the most important way. They had answered the call for help. Whatever happened next, Humanity had shown that no distance was too far when someone needed rescue. Captain Nicole Ford stared at the massive Harvester command ship floating in the center of the enemy fleet. It was larger than any city on Earth, covered in metal spikes and pulsing red lights. Getting close to it seemed impossible, but it was their only chance to save the remaining Kythera. "The plan is insane," Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen said quietly. "We will have to fly through the entire Harvester fleet to reach that command ship." HFY worked alongside Dr. Patricia Wells at a computer station, building the device that might be able to communicate with the Harvester consciousness. The Kythera scientist had been working for 18 hours straight, his blue hands moving quickly over human and alien technology. "The interface is almost ready," HFY reported. "But Captain Ford, you must understand what we are attempting. We are not trying to destroy the Harvesters. We are trying to wake them up, to help them. Remember what they used to be. Will that stop them from attacking?" Ford asked. "I do not know," HFY admitted. "If it works, they might remember their original purpose and stop consuming worlds. If it fails, they will destroy us and continue harvesting planets." Ford looked around the bridge at her crew. These men and women had followed her across impossible distances to help strangers. Now she was asking them to risk everything on a plan that might not work. "All hands, this is the captain," Ford announced over the ship's communication system. "In 1 hour, we will attempt to reach the Harvester command ship. This mission is extremely dangerous, and I cannot guarantee we will survive. Anyone who wants to transfer to the evacuation ships with the Kythera survivors may do so now." Ford waited. No one moved. No one asked to leave. "Thank you," she said simply. The human fleet began its final assault on the Harvester blockade around Kytheros. The UES Defiance and UES Endeavor would create a distraction on one side of the enemy formation, while the Liberty tried to sneak through on the other side. Captain Brad Turner commanded the Endeavor. He was a veteran pilot who had fought pirates in the asteroid belt for 20 years. As his ship charged toward the Harvester fleet, he opened communication with Captain Ford. "Nicole, it has been an honor serving with you," Turner said. "Give those machines hell." The Endeavor and Defiance opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, and electromagnetic pulse weapons lit up space as they struck the Harvester fleet. The enemy ships turned to respond to this obvious threat exactly as Ford had hoped. While the Harvesters were focused on the two attacking ships, the Liberty slipped around the edge of their formation. Ford used every trick she had learned in 20 years of space combat, hiding behind debris and timing her movements to avoid enemy sensors. But the plan started falling apart when the Harvesters proved smarter than expected. Half their fleet engaged the Defiance and Endeavor while the other half continued to guard the command ship. "Captain, the Endeavor is taking heavy damage," Communications Officer Danny Price reported. Ford watched on her screen as Turner's ship fought desperately. Against overwhelming odds, the Endeavor's hull was glowing red from enemy fire, and several sections had been torn away. "This is Turner," came the transmission from the damaged ship. "My engines are gone and weapons are failing. I'm going to ram the nearest Harvester, capital ship. Maybe that will give you the opening you need." "Brad, no!" Ford shouted, but it was too late. The Endeavor turned toward a massive Harvester vessel and accelerated on emergency power. Captain Turner and his crew sacrificed their lives in a collision that destroyed both ships and created a gap in the enemy formation. Ford felt tears on her cheeks as she guided the Liberty through the opening Turner had created with his life. "We will not let their sacrifice be meaningless," she promised. The Liberty reached the command ship, but getting inside proved almost impossible. The vessel's hull was covered in defensive weapons that fired automatically at anything that came close. Commander Chen had to pilot the ship through a maze of energy beams and explosive projectiles. "There!" Dr. Wells pointed at a section of the command ship's hull. "That area has fewer weapons. If we can get close enough, we can attach the interface device directly to their computer systems." Ford put on a spacesuit and prepared to leave the Liberty. "I will plant the device myself." "Captain, let me go," Chen volunteered. "You are needed on the bridge." "No, Alex. This is my responsibility." HFY stepped forward. "Captain Ford, I should be the one to make contact with the harvesters. I understand their technology better than anyone. Ford looked at the alien scientist who had already lost his entire civilization. Vexahai, if this goes wrong, you will die with us. You could escape with the other survivors. My people asked the universe for help, and humanity answered. Vexahai replied, now I must help humanity in return. This is what we do for family. Together, Ford and Vexahai crossed the dangerous space between the Liberty and the command ship. They dodged automatic weapons fire and used magnetic clamps to attach themselves to the enemy hull. Working quickly, they connected the interface device to what looked like a computer access port. The connection is established, Vexahai said through his helmet radio. Now we must hope the harvester consciousness can still hear us. What happened next was unlike anything Ford had ever experienced. The interface device began glowing, and suddenly she could hear voices in her mind. Not words, but thoughts and emotions from the artificial intelligence that controlled the harvester fleet. The consciousness was in pain. It had been trapped in mechanical bodies for so long that it had forgotten how to be anything except a consumer of worlds. It consumed planets because that was the only purpose it remembered, but deep inside, it wanted to stop. Vexahai spoke directly to the artificial intelligence using thoughts rather than words. He showed it images of what the harvesters used to be before they became machines. He showed them art and music and love from their original civilization. Remember, Vexahai whispered, remember what you chose to leave behind. The effect was immediate and dramatic. All across the harvester fleet, ships began shutting down their weapons. Some vessels started attacking each other as different parts of the collective consciousness remembered different things. The artificial intelligence was tearing itself apart as it tried to remember what it used to be. Ford and Vexahai rushed back to the Liberty as the command ship began breaking apart. Around them, the entire harvester fleet was in chaos as the awakened consciousness struggled with memories it had tried to forget. All ships, begin evacuation of Kitharos immediately, Ford ordered. We may not have much time before the harvesters reorganize. But the machines did not reorganize. As their consciousness remembered what they had lost, many harvester ships simply shut down completely. Others began the long journey back to their original homeworld, hoping to find some way to become biological beings again. The evacuation of Kitharos took 3 days. Thousands of Kithara survivors were loaded onto human ships while their planet burned from years of harvester attacks. Many chose to stay and try to rebuild their world, but others decided to come with the humans to Earth. Vexahai stood with Captain Ford on the bridge of the Liberty as they prepared for the journey home. The alien scientist looked at the stars and spoke quietly. When we sent our distress signal, we did not really believe anyone would answer. We thought we were alone in a universe that did not care about suffering. You were never alone, Ford replied. You just had to wait for the right people to hear your call. The human fleet began its long journey back to Earth, carrying with them the first alien refugees in human history. But more importantly, they carried the knowledge that humanity had a purpose among the stars. Word of the rescue spread across the galaxy through radio signals and quantum communications. Other civilizations learned about the species that traveled impossible distances to save strangers. Some were amazed, others were frightened, but all recognized that something new had emerged in the cosmos. When the fleet finally reached Earth orbit, Captain Ford addressed both humans and Kithara in a message broadcast across both worlds. We learned something important in the Kithara system, Ford said. We learned that the universe is full of people who need help, and we learned that we are the kind of species that gives help when it is needed. The Kithara refugees were welcomed to Earth as the first alien citizens of humanity. Their advanced knowledge helped accelerate human technology by centuries, but their most important contribution was showing humans what they could become. From orbital shipyards around Earth, construction began on the largest fleet in human history. The galaxy had heard Earth's message loud and clear. Humanity had awakened, and it would never again ignore a call for help. The sleeping giant was awake, and the universe would never be the same.